Welcome back, everyone. This episode marks the beginning of a new chapter for the show. For the last few years, this podcast has been called The Life of PHYS. That name was always about my personal journey as an artist, the struggles, the growth, and the people I've met along the way. But as the show has grown, something became very clear. The conversations were never really just about my life. They were about the photographers, filmmakers, artists, athletes, and storytellers who come on the show and share their experiences, their philosophies, and the stories behind their work. So the name is evolving. From now on, the show will be called the PHYS Podcast. PHYS stands for Photography Heals Your Soul, and that idea has always been the heart of this podcast. The goal moving forward is simple: to focus even more on the people, the stories, and the creative journeys that make photography such a powerful part of our lives. And don't worry, the Life of PHYS isn't going anywhere. That will continue as my personal creative journey platform. But the podcast itself is now the PHYS Podcast, and I couldn't think of a better guest to kick off this new chapter. Today I'm joined by my friend Dan Tamarkin. Dan is the owner of Tamarkin Camera and the Rangefinder Gallery in Chicago, Illinois. Dan grew up around cameras. His father, Stan Tamarkin, founded Tamarkin Camera in 1971 in the family home in New Haven, Connecticut. Dan eventually took over the business in 2010 and moved it to Chicago in 2012, where he opened Tamarkin Camera and the Rangefinder Gallery, a space dedicated to photographers and the iconic Leica brand. Dan's background is also deeply rooted in storytelling. He studied writing and linguistics at the University of Illinois in Chicago and spent years working as a theatrical lighting designer, teacher, performer, and writer. Today he shoots both film and digital, often with a Leica M7 or an M monochrome, typically with a 50mm lens attached. And he's also a passionate collector of vintage Leica cameras like the M2 and the Standard. In this conversation, we talk about Leica history, collecting cameras, running a gallery, and building community around photography. Now let's get to the show.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Dan Tamarkin. I'm based in Chicago, Illinois. I am originally from New Haven, Connecticut, and I serve the Leica community around the world as second generation Leica dealer. My father founded the company in 1971 in the house that I grew up in. And so my family has been selling Leica for more than half the time that they've been produced.
That's incredible.
I know, isn't it cool? I'm super proud of that. And so I serve the Leica community all around the world in two ways. Three ways. One is I am a second generation auctioneer, and I hold rare camera auctions that are mainly Leica, but all kinds of other stuff as well. And I am at the helm of Tamarkin Camera, which has been a Leica dealership since I think 1983 or 1984 in Connecticut and New York. And when my father retired in 2010 really, he said, all right, kiddo, you do whatever you want to do. I'm going to go play golf. And I packed up and moved back to Chicago, where I've been living since 89 or 90. So Chicago's been my home for a long time. And while I'm not wild about the weather, I love the city. And so I was really pleased in 2012 to open Tamarkin Camera here in the Midwest in Chicago. And we moved from Connecticut to Chicago in a rented U-Haul truck. And I was actually taking calls. We never closed because we're primarily a mail order dealership. Although we have a big fancy showroom in downtown Chicago, we're traditionally a mail order dealership. And so I was actually able to make sales while driving through the Cumberland Gap with a U-Haul full of Leica, which is kind of an exciting move to make. And so now we are in Chicago, downtown Chicago, in the River North Gallery District with a 2,000 square foot showroom full of Leica. We have collectible, we have used, which is the backbone of the business, is most of what we do is secondhand, and vintage and collectible. We have a small museum space, which is basically one giant glass case full of my collection. And behind that is the Rangefinder Gallery, where we show photographs made from the iconic Leica camera. And so I am just about the luckiest guy in the world in that I get to do what I love. And I love what I do. I mean, it's a job. Now, I don't love it every day, but Uh, I love what I do. I get to play with all these just fantastic cameras and lenses, and I get exposed to all of these stories and all of these people and these photographers. I get to travel, um, and I get to remain independent. And kind of like we were chatting about a moment ago, there's nothing like the Leica community. And part and parcel of being a Leica dealer and being involved in the community, especially as second generation, because I kind of grew up in it, is that you become a part of this terrific community and you meet wonderful, wonderful people. Um, and so a lot of it, and this is the third way in which I serve the Leica community, is that I just bring myself. I don't speak like this very often, so I'll just get it out of the way right now. There's nobody in the world of Leica that does what I do. Nobody. There might be some other people in Europe. I know there are some second generation folks and some folks with kind of outsized personalities, and the passion for Leica. I'm not saying that I'm uh, singular. It's one of those things like just remember that you're unique, just like everyone else. Um, but nobody really does what I do, and hanging out with me is really a lot of fun. And I like, and because I like what I do and I'm passionate about it and I'm open to everybody else's experience, I don't really have any agenda other than having fun. And although food is very important to me, I will tell you when I get hungry, the world stops turning. But otherwise, I just love what I do. And we provide at Tamarkin Camera and also at Tamarkin Auctions, we provide an experience that is really singular. Um, and we're all about the community, and we're really kind of secondarily about the sales. Because without all of you, without, it's accepting a Grammy. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for all of you. I would be twiddling my thumbs. I would still be a marketing copywriter and editor for a health insurance company. Oh, oh.
That must have killed you with your
It made
personality.
me, oh, they paid me well, but and I was trained as a writer. I studied I went to the University of Illinois in Chicago, what folks my age will call the Circle campus, in downtown Chicago, and I studied writing, creative writing, of course, creative writing with an emphasis on poetry, and I had a double minor until there got to be too much math in geology and linguistics. Um, but I'm a theater baby. My mother is an actress. She's 83 and she's shot out of a cannon and she's still acting and she's not acting as much as she used to, directing and writing and all that kind of stuff. And my brother is a teacher and a fabulous actor and has been since he was a little kid, out in Seattle. And I grew up in the theater. And so when I moved to Chicago in my early 20s to seek my fame and fortune, I worked in storefront theater. I was a union journeyman, actually. I was an IATSE electrician for the theater union. And I was working with a whole bunch of old crusty folks, and it was just no fun. And then I discovered storefront or black box theater in here in Chicago, which is actually how I met my wife. And um, I just fell in love with it. And I was like, this is awesome. I can drink beer, chase girls, and do theater. It's like the trifecta. What's not to love?
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't make any money. I never had vacation. I was a rigger and an electrician, and I was doing very dangerous work without any insurance, but I have all my fingers and toes, thankfully. Uh, a few scars to show for it. And so that's what I did in my early 20s. And then I went to school, studied writing, became a travel writer at the beginning of the internet. So they didn't have to send me anywhere. I could just, you know, well, it was kind of before Google, but I was a travel writer, but I was really just an editor for a travel company. And then got involved in the health insurance game, which bored me to tears. I worked it for about 4 years. And then in 2008 or 2009, I got a pink slip and I was like, oh, woe is me. What am I ever going what's going to become of me? Um, and the job market was terrible. And parents were visiting for the holidays right around this time of year. And my dad said to me, I got a solution for both of my problems, kiddo. And I was like, well, I just lost the best job I ever had. What's your problem? And he said, I don't want to do this anymore. I've been in the Leica game for more than 40 years. And Canucks, Canuck. I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. But if your mother and I will make you a loan, and we'll, because I didn't. I mean, I didn't have any money. I couldn't buy the inventory. And at that point in the economy, while my credit was good, I couldn't get a loan that would catapult me into a Leica dealership without the help of my folks, who very generously made me a loan. And my dad said, "You just make sure the checks land on my desk every month, young man, and we'll be okay." Which is what I did. So I moved from Chicago to Connecticut in 2010 to apprentice with my father, which was really a wonderful thing, a real blessing in my life because I got to know him much, much better. Got to know him as a person much better than I ever had. And I learned a lot about Leica, and I got to handle a lot of this stuff that I had been dreaming about. And while I've owned a Leica camera for some years, I was never really fully steeped in it because I was a writer. I was in theater, drinking beer and chasing girls and doing lighting, and doing all this other stuff. So like, and it's actually kind of silly. I kind of wish that I, I kind of wish that I had taken photographs of the stuff that I had done in my 20s in the theater because it's all incredibly transient. It just theater in general is particularly transient because you do a show for eight weeks, rehearse for 4 weeks, you put the show up for 8 weeks, and you have a closing party. Everybody gets smashed, and off you go. And there's no, there's nothing there to hold on to. Even though people might videotape or take some photographs. Anyway, I don't have a lot of photographs from my time in the theater, which is kind of ironic because I've always been interested in Leica, and I grew up in a house where people would come over and put their Leicas on the dining room table, and my father and these people would strange people would come and trade cameras and talk Leica and use all these weird terms. The whole Leica lexicon is a one of these days I'm going to write a book, Tyson. One of these days I'm going to write a book, maybe in my retirement, about a taxonomy of Leica people and just Leica stuff. Um, but all these funny words, Summicron and Elmar and Elmerit and Telit and Visoflex and all this weird stuff. So I kind of grew up with this. So for me, it was really kind of natural. But anyway, I had watched as a child and young man, a teenager and then young man, watch my father build this business, and I was always very proud of it and vicariously. And I would go back and visit my folks, over summer vacation or whatever it was. My father would put me to work in the shipping department, but I would get to take an M6 home for the weekend. And that was really cool because, I mean, I was a kid. I couldn't touch this stuff. Um, and I said to my dad, I want to buy a Leica. And he was like, oh, nobody your age should buy a Leica. You're too young. You're too young. And also, I was into theater. I was into playing guitar. I was, off touring with the Grateful Dead. I would have lost it or smashed it or who knows what would have happened. And so I bought my first Leica. It was an M2 that looked like it got rolled over by a tank. And I was home visiting my parents. And I would always go to the shop and I would, just like everybody else, I would look through the glass case and just salivate. And oh man, whew, I just love Leica. So, and I would get to play with this kind of stuff, but I would pack it up and ship it out, and that was like my summer job. And so I had 1995, I had a credit card. I just started going to college. I was 25. Wait, is that right? Yeah, I was 25 or 26. I went to college, and finally. But I got a credit card. See, I couldn't get a credit card till I enrolled in college, and then I got all these credit cards. Anyway, but I had this credit card and I went to my dad's shop and I was like, all right, old man, I'm going to buy a Leica today. And he's like, whatever. He's like, it's your credit card. He's like, whatever. So I picked out this M2 as the only thing I could afford. And he sold it to me at his cost, which was $660. It was $1,000 camera in 1995. And it was rough. It was rough. But I couldn't afford a lens. What am I going to do? I couldn't afford a lens. I mean, I had some sense. And a $660 purchase was about the biggest purchase I'd ever made in my entire life to date. And so I had this camera for a year, right? I had this camera and I scrimped and I saved, and eventually I got a lens. But I had, and this to anybody who thinks, oh, Dan, the Leica man, he's got, oh, he grew up with a silver spoon, silver Leica spoon, and I had a Pentax K1000. Is what I learned on. I had a Canonet. I had an Olympus OM1. And I had another Pentax K1000, which I think that's the one that I dropped down the side of a mountain. And then, but anyway, eventually, but I got the film out. I got the film out and then I fumbled it and down the mountain it went. So at least I got my roll of film. But anyway, so I had this Leica M2 for a year. I still have it. It's in the living room. I'll never sell it. And I would wind it and I would put film through it and I would play around with the viewfinder. I would wind it, I would unwind it, I would click the shutter. Ooh, it was so sexy. I loved it. But I couldn't take a single picture because I didn't have a lens. And about a year later, I was like, okay, I paid that. I think I had paid off the M2 and I was ready to put more money on the credit card. And I had this project that was based in the theater, but we were going out to Arizona and we were shooting, it was a multimedia project and we were shooting film because this is in the days before digital. And we were shooting this movie and we wanted still photography. And I said, well, I'm going to borrow a lens from my dad. And so my dad sent me a 50 millimeter dual range Summicron, which at that time sold for, this is 96 or 97, which at that time sold for a couple of hundred or, $300. And he sent it to me. And then I went to pay for it after the project. I was like, hey, dude, can I buy this? I want to keep this lens. He said, hey, yeah, just keep it. I was like, oh, wow. So now I have an M2 and a 50 dual range Summicron, and I'm on top of the world. And so I start, and then I start to really get into photography because there was something, and this is true about Leica. I'm going to speak more generally, less about myself, but I know this, and this is there is a cachet to Leica. And I remember being in my early 20s and being like, oh, I got this rad camera. And it was like my most prized possession, other than maybe my guitar, which didn't cost nearly as much. I mean, I bought it for my guitar for $87.63, which is all the money I had in my pocket from a pawn shop underneath the train tracks. Um, and so I was super paranoid about it because it was incredibly expensive object. But this is a really true thing about Leica and generally there is cachet. And people use it. I use it. I use it in the sense that when I go out to a Leica meeting or a place when I make an appearance as Dan Tamarkin, the auctioneer, Dan Tamarkin, the Leica dealer, I will grab from our cabinet the latest and greatest camera, even if I personally don't really care to shoot it because of appearances and people fawn over it. And there is a bling to Leica, and God bless. It's the same thing with Rolex or Vacheron or Corvette or anything else really. Steinway, Fender, Gibson, it's all the same thing. And so as a young man, I was like, ooh, I got this Leica. And I wanted to use it because I love the way it feels. I didn't really know very much about film. I kind of knew what I liked, but I wanted to experiment with different film stocks, black and white, almost exclusively black and white from the beginning. Color gives me anxiety. Uh, I mean, I shoot in color. I do. But when my style of photography, color gives me anxiety. Never really looks the way I want it to look for me. Anyway, so I started playing around with a lot of films, different films, and this is before film was popular, but it was still an expensive hobby for essentially a kid in the theater, and the film stocks weren't good enough to take photographs in the theater. Plus, I was busy. So oddly enough, my interest in the theater, and which was really my kind of my first career, and photography, my current career, more or less, converged kind of at the same time, or occurred, I guess, at kind of the same time. Yet I have very few photographs from my time in the theater. So I have absolutely no idea what question you asked me that got me to where I am. But so that my wife in the other room is laughing at that because she's used to it. So, but that's what I do is I love to schmooze. I love to talk to people. I love to talk about Leica. I'm super fortunate in that I've been able to use almost every piece of gear that Leica has brought to market since 1925.
Wow.
And so I could talk. I mean, there are very few things that they've made that I haven't at least held, if not actually used. Um, and I know what I like. And so and I think it's like a lot of different things because it's a tool. It's also a toy in reference to what I was just talking about, the bling and all of that. But it's a tool, and I think the right tool for the right job. And I really like I really like the Q. I really like the Q343. I really want to like the new MEV1. Oh, I really want to like that camera. Oh, more on that later. I don't want to go down a gear rabbit hole, but anyway, Leica makes stuff. I get to use it all. Some of it I just don't like. But it's
Fair
because
enough.
it's the right tool for the right job, man. I mean, I think the most important thing, and I tell this to my clientele, I'm not just blowing smoke when I say this. I really do mean it. If you're not going to if that's not the thing that you gravitate to, and that's not the thing that you want to carry when you head out the house, what's the point? Trade it in and get something that you do want. This whole
Yeah.
idea of EDC and the whole idea, you see, I think unlike Rolex, Leica has a thing that Rolex has a much harder thing to do, although they're doing it with Tudor, with their kind of sub brand. And Tudors are fabulous, actually. I'd love to have one, but I'm out of the watch game. That Leica is quiet luxury. And Leica is quiet luxury in a couple of different fashions. One is that not a lot of people know exactly what a Leica camera is. So 85% of the people are going to look at you shooting a $20,000 rig and go, ah, look at that person shooting a crummy old film camera
Yeah.
because they have no idea what it is. And then the other 15% of the people that you encounter or encounter you with your Leica on the street are going to come up to you foaming at the mouth and want to talk about Leica. And what what better way to make community?
Yep.
What better way for the health of the brand that it has such a vibrant secondhand market and community? Um, and in and of itself, that is quiet luxury because you are a part of this. You're just as much a part of someone who has a $50,000, $100,000 Leica special edition set as having a little screw mount Leica camera that you got at, a resale shop for $100 and you're shooting the film on that Leica. Now, it's the same thing. Or whether you have a Leica M4 or like me, the Leica M2, I scrimped and saved for that thing. I don't even want to think about how much interest I paid Visa or MasterCard to own that Leica account. I don't even want to know. Um, but even that camera that looked like it got rolled over by a tank, that is quiet luxury because you're a part of this very sleek and chic and innovative and NASA grade photographic equipment brand.
Yeah. So
That's an exciting thing.
here in Vancouver, Taki Keo, he puts on every third Friday of the month. It's called Coffee Cameras and Things. So he picks a coffee shop, and everybody shows up, and it's a Leica fest. Like I'm not even gonna like try to exaggerate that it's not. And the mistake I made is that I'd actually never held one. So I went to my first event, and he hands me a Q3.
Yeah.
And the first thing I noticed was, well, it's not super light. And then you start looking at the quality of the build, and you're like, okay, well, this is very well built. It's very sleek. It's very nice. And then that sent me right down the rabbit hole. And then having friends like James, who, is always talking about how much he just loves the camera, the brand, the way it works for him. And, following you on Instagram for a while. I mean, I love your stuff. I think it's hilarious how you do things, but that's what draws people in, and that's what I try to do here with this platform is I try to utilize the voice that I have. I try to utilize, building a community while sharing a story. And, it's starting to take off. And, as you talked about in the beginning, I just got my very first Leica ever. And it's a original Q in pristine condition. And now that is going to be my sole, pretty much my everything camera. Unless it comes to action or wildlife, that's going to be the camera that's on me. Yeah. And I'm excited. Terrific.
Yeah. I'm excited for you, Tyson. This is great, man. I'm excited to see what you do with it. Your landscape photography is absolutely stunning.
I appreciate that.
I'm so glad we're connected because we get to see each other's stuff. I mean, and this is part of why and how I do what I do. People who know me know that I can be very serious. I'm serious about some things. I'm serious about business. It's my livelihood. I'm not some knucklehead in his living room or in some rented space just wheeling and dealing Leica. Like I have a reputation and I mean to uphold it.
Yes.
I'm not very good at social media. I do not have a degree in marketing. I don't have the time really to do a lot of this stuff because I want to be right where I'm at. I must express gratitude for that. A small, scrappy organization that loves what it does. And so I am serious about that kind of thing. But in the rest of my waking hours, I am not a serious person at all. And my wife is chuckling in the background. That's where, that's how Bosco Arnak became birthed. I don't know where that asshole is. I think I don't know if I can say that.
You can say whatever.
Okay, thank you. He's probably in jail. But I like, he's probably in jail. Every time he disappears for a little while, he's either been kidnapped or he's in jail. So I'm really not a very serious person by and large. In most aspects, I do not take myself very seriously. And so then that's one of the things that I can bring to this. Because while I love photography, I'm not a terrific photographer. I love what I do. I love architectural photography. I like portraiture, the idea of candid portraiture. I like people in their element. Because I believe that it's absolutely the most precious thing on earth are people.
And that's one of the reasons when I started discussing this project with Kieran, it was resonating with me. And that's why I was approaching you like, hey, like, is there any way we can work together and like make, a Leica somehow make the Leica camera the payment, just because I really wanted it to be a part of this project because it's exactly what Leica stands for.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad you guys are connected. Karen is just wonderful, wonderful people. I love her.
She is one of my closest friends. She is my confidant. She is my business coach. She is anything I need. I just text her and she gets back to me when she's not busy and offers me the advice I need and the wisdom, especially when you're a new entity and you've been working really hard and you don't feel like it's going anywhere.
Yes.
And she is grounded and she is the voice of reason. And she's like, you're making a difference. You are doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing right now. So nothing but respect for Kieran, James as well. James Rice, another mutual friend.
Yep.
He reaches out when I got sick 2 Octobers ago. He reached out and was making sure I was okay while I spent my 4 weeks in the hospital. And that's the kind of connection I've made through this show is they're not just people. now. These are friends. These are people that text and we talk,
Yeah.
and it's created a community of amazing, amazing people.
Yeah. And you know, for all of my kind of clumsiness around social media and my um really I don't know any other way to put it, but just ham fisting it. Um I I'm not really a techno kind of guy, but the ability, like this Zoom that we're on right now, because the people who are going to hear this, they're only hearing it, but we're actually seeing one another right now.
Yeah.
And texting and being connected with somebody who's halfway around the world or halfway across or all the way across the country, it's really marvelous. And while I'm in my mid 50s, while I pine for the days before the iPhone.
Oh, yes. Me too.
I really do. I really do.
Yeah.
I find myself kind of returning to that and like in a daydreamy sort of way more often than I did in the past. While I'm really not all that keen on all this technology, and I do pine for the days before it, thank you, Zoom, thank you, SMS, thank you, whatever all it is, Tim Berners-Lee, from, creating the internet or whatever, whoever all it is we have to thank. I'm excited now in ways that I wasn't before to be using social media. Well, excited is maybe too strong a word, but like, I just got on Iris, which
Yep.
I'm excited to check out. Um, it's IRYS for
I'm on
anybody
there
who
as well.
doesn't know. Yeah, I have no idea how any of it works.
Me
Okay, so
either.
disclaimer right now, I have no idea how any of it
I'm
works. Just
51.
try to keep it clean.
I'm an old man too, so you know what I mean. It's I look at some of this stuff now, and I'm at the age, I turned 51 last month, so going to talk to my kids about, like, how does this work?
Yeah,
They're like, I'm like you. I don't take life serious anymore. Life was
yeah,
my life was almost cut short in October of 2024. Like,
yeah,
I almost died, and thankful that whoever I prayed to during that time, they let me make it through, and
yeah.
the 10 weeks that I was off work didn't bankrupt us. And I can no longer let life take over everything. It's got to be enjoyable. I've got more
Yeah.
days behind me than I have left ahead of me. So,
Yeah, that's a scary notion, I think,
yeah,
when it's a scary notion and it comes in a very stark contrast with a health scare or when somebody close to you passes away very young. It's a difficult thing to deal with. And there's also the idea of what kind of legacy are we going to leave? I don't have any kids. And I become increasingly more envious of my friends that do as I grow older.
I got enough
Um,
kids for both of us, sir.
right.
I got
Yeah.
6. So, I took care of the
I
kid part.
Right on, right on. And being the wacky, I love being the wacky uncle. And I have a number of nephews and nieces, either by blood or by tribe. To return to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago around Kieran and James and a lot of these and Pete and these people's tribe, man, you got to have your people. And very often they are members of your blood family. But for somebody like me personally, while I'm very close with my parents, who are both thankfully still around, and my siblings, I have two younger brothers and a younger sister. My little sister is almost 11 years my junior, so she was like 6 years old when I moved out of the house. So it's an interesting dynamic. But while I am very close with my family, I think that it's extremely important that wherever people are, that they find that found family or tribe, whether it's coffee, clatch, like a meeting, or church, or actual family, or neighbors, or whatever it is. I think that um, without I don't want to turn immediately to cliches, but lone wolves don't survive.
Yeah.
We have to have tribe, and it's got to be and it's got to be of our own making by hook or by crook. And for some people that who have extremely close knit and insular families, for example, that all live in the same city, I'm kind of envious of that. Like I left when I was 21 years old. I left New Haven, Connecticut, and I've been in Chicago ever since. And so for me, while I have blood elsewhere, the people in Chicago are my family,
Yep.
100%. And as I meet and become more and more connected with people afar, whether it's from Zoom or other technology, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, or some of the travels I'm able to do by through my work, um, that tribe widens it, and it widens it these it's like throwing a pebble in a pond. You get these concentric ripples outward, and then of course somebody else throws a pebble, and they start to cross, and they cross an almost infinite way. And the connections that we make throughout our lives as we move through our lives and experience life in whatever fashion we tend to do it, we affect people, and we are affected by people. I mean, I can remember something a taxi driver said to me 10 years ago in San Francisco. I have no idea what their name is. I have no idea, but I remember just these little nuggets and these things as these ripples cross one another, maybe not to cross again. It's important, I think, to recognize these things that influence us, because we influence other people in the same way, and in the same fashions, in the same random, perhaps unappreciated or even unrecognized way, for better or for worse. And I think that every interaction has within it the possibility, has a million possibilities within it.
I agree fully.
Which is why it's so important to stay present. And I struggle with this because I am type A and my brain is all over the place. But that's one of the things that for me, especially in getting to know people better, brings a presence to the interaction, because we're curious and we're invested and we're hopeful, and we get joy from the interactions, however small or large they are, which is one of the things that makes community, I'm saying tribe and I mean community by it, that make community so important. And with Leica, as opposed to, you know, even Rolex or BMW or Birka bags, or is that what they're called? Birka bags? Or
Birkins, I think.
Birkins, that's what it is. Birkin. I'm super hip, can't you tell?
I can tell.
With all of these other brands, like they don't have this kind of community together. And for my part, especially as a merchant and a collector and a user, I kind of straddle all these worlds. When you come into my store or into my home or into my group or whatever, or our group, whatever it is, I couldn't care less if you're wearing it, if you're wearing a Leica as jewelry. Couldn't care less. You have fine taste. I couldn't care less. Doesn't matter to me. And if you use and I tell people all the time, use whatever camera you want. Use whatever. For me, it could be a hot pink Fisher Price Holga, and when I want to shoot, that's what I'm going to grab.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to have a pre-war Martin guitar. Ooh, but am I going to spend that kind of money? No, sir. It's just not my bag.
Yep.
It's just not my bag. And so I could appreciate that. And I've been fortunate enough to play one so that I know what it sounds like. And I know what that $25,000 or whatever it is going to get me. I don't care enough for it. That's why, while we have a new Leica M EV1, which I took out for over Thanksgiving and then promptly put back in the cabinet, I put my vintage 50 Summicron lens on it because that's what I know and love, even though I could be using the latest and greatest. And so for me, I take a different approach. But whatever the people's approach are, historic, bling, best optics in the world, form factor of the M, convenience of the Q, whatever it is, people come to this brand from in all different ways, all different manners, none of them right, none of them wrong. And I think that being able to be a part of that community, no matter how you approach it, is one of the really glorious things about Leica and even Leica adjacency. And I think that it's certainly for example, Beers and Cameras does a thing in Chicago. They've started out in LA. I think there's one in Atlanta, and they have a bunch of them across the country. It's an awful lot of fun. Whether you drink beer or not, not really much of a beer drinker, but boy, is it a lot of fun. And people come around, all kinds of different cameras. And the people who don't have Leicas, we're like, here, hold the Leica, take a couple of pictures. Why not? Pop your SD card in there and take a couple of pictures. And People have the vintage Pentax and medium format and all this different kind of stuff. And so even Leica adjacent photographers or Leica aspirational photographers can be a part of this group without having to own a Leica because even the people that own Leicas by hook or by crook, no matter how they came upon them, I think they appreciate. It's kind of like musicians. If you say, and I've done this, I'm speaking from experience. I have had musicians just coming up say to me, "Hey, what are you doing? How do you play that?" I'd be like, "Oh, here, check it out." I play left-handed, so people it usually messes around. This is one of the reasons I don't have a $25,000 guitar because I'm left-handed. I couldn't play it anyway. Um, and when I have gone to well-heeled or professional or very knowledgeable musicians, some of them almost three times my age at the time. I'm thinking of a particular banjo player named Larry. I can't think. His last name will come to me. From lives in Connecticut. Used to play with Doc Watson. I mean, this guy has been around, and he was like, "Hey, you're missing a chord." I thought I was playing the song perfectly. I was like, "What chord is that?" And he told me, and I was like, "I don't know that chord. F augmented third, or I don't know music." And I'm ham-fisted. I strum my guitar. I love playing. I don't know anything about theory. And he goes, "No, that's a F major 7 diminished." And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he showed me. He was like, "Here, put your finger here, put your finger here, put your finger here." He had a banjo, and he was like, "Give me your guitar." No, somebody else give me your guitar because mine's left-handed. And he showed me how to do the thing, which is exactly the experience that I have had and that I provide when people are coming in to this tribe, this community of Leica or beers and cameras or whatever it is. The gallery opening, just into my store.
Yeah.
Welcome in. That's what comes first.
I
And then
think what
everything else I think disseminates from there and comes organically from there. And some people come in and they're like, "Do you have one of these?" I'm like, "No, no, they're out of stock right now." Oh, well, off they go. Or some people come in and like, "I want one of those, I want a hamburger, I want a hot dog, they want
yeah.
everything," which is great. And I love them all. And I tell people frequently, for those of you who haven't met me or visited my showroom, come and visit, leave your checkbook at home. We are absolutely not all about sales. Um, that's why I pay the rent that I do to have my big fancy showroom downtown because I want people to come in and distract me from my work and talk Leica.
Yeah. Well, my biggest thing, I mean, I've been in sales for 30 years. That's what I do. I sell. Basically, I help people achieve their dream with their off-road vehicle. They tell me what they want. I piece all the parts together. My
Gotcha.
guys do the install. They're out enjoying their lives in the backcountry.
Nice.
But I've always done it on a different way. It's never been about the dollar figure. It's been about building that relationship that allowed me to. I took a 5 or 6 year break from working in the industry, and as soon as people heard I was back, they now come to the shop that I'm at now.
Oh,
And that's
that's
cool
awesome.
because I've built
Yeah.
that reputation. And that's the same with the show. I built it on authentic, pure, real conversation about life, about the people, and about, hopefully sponsored by Leica soon. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Yeah. Right. Let's not like yeah.
Yeah.
I
But the
think that,
brand, like I've heard, like I've had Dave Herring on and he's now connected to Leica deeper. But he tells me like these Leica events, when you show up, it's like your family is there. And
yeah.
everybody is so friendly. It's not even about cameras anymore. It's just about, hey, how's things going? Like talking about your projects or talking about how you're doing it. And that's something
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to becoming a part of.
Yeah. And there is like in every family gathering, there's that weird uncle who says things that he shouldn't say. There's the grandpa telling stories, that make your eyes roll back in your head, and all this different stuff. And actually, I'll even go further than that, Tyson. There's actually like a living room cadre, there's a kitchen cadre, and people kind of like they kind of click up a little bit to start talking about projects or printing or lenses or it is so much fun whether it happens at the LSI, which used to be called the Leica Society International, or it used to be called the Leica Historical Society, um, or a coffee and cameras meetup, or the beers and cameras, or whatever it is, any of these meetups, it really is just like family. So I encourage you and anybody listening, whether you have a Leica or not, to attend an event like that and see what it's like. And it's not to say that other sorts of things, cars, watches, whatever, fountain pens, guitars, or other camera brands don't have some community, but there's something special about the Leica community. There really is.
I agree. It's
And
something that, like I said, I made a decision that was I probably lost some money in value when I traded product in to move into this Leica, but in my heart, it is something that I've wanted. It's something that I feel connected to, and it's something I'm looking forward to using in this project and capturing these images strictly on this camera. It's something important. It's something that's going to, I hope when this project's finished, it leaves a legacy of who I am and what I'm out there for and what I'm trying to build.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. And for exactly the reasons that we're talking about, Tyson, because when you do, I think it was, I'm going to wildly misquote Yvon Chouinard, who founded Patagonia. And he said something to the effect of, when you just do things right, all of the kudos and all of the great things come. They come. When you do things organically, when you do things coming from a place of openness, curiosity, flexibility, I think that all the good stuff comes. And so, and to kind of extend that out to exactly what you were talking about, when we do things that are coming from the heart and coming from a place of openness and curiosity, I find that our personality, who we are, gets indelibly imprinted on that thing. To make a really super loose analogy, when you turn on the TV and you see a film come on, you're like, oh, that's Quentin Tarantino, right? Or that's Scorsese, or whatever it is. Or you look at a painting, you're like, oh, that's Dali, or oh, that's Rothko, or you're like, oh, that's the Grateful Dead, or oh, that sounds like Pink Floyd to me, or whatever it is. Or Coltrane, it's got to be Coltrane. Um, Nobody ever set out to say, I'm going to make my thing look like a Rothko. Rothko just did his fucking thing.
Yeah.
And and there is a certain amount, I think, of or this idea of open, curious, flexible, organic things happening organically, and it's when we don't force things and when we allow things to kind of percolate in our mind and percolate down into the moment and fully form that moment that gives us an idea or that allows that idea to take shape. Think of framing your image, being like, oh wow, that was boring until just now. Click, like this notion of the decisive moment, and or this notion of sharpness is a bourgeois concept, to bring it directly back into the photography and Leica thing. We all imprint. It's a little bit like the generality of, it's that movie they play at Christmas, It's a Wonderful Life. And Clarence the Angel comes down to show, I can't remember his name, Jimmy Stewart, what would have happened if he wasn't there. I think it's really true. It's true on a human level, and I think it's true in art as well. In fact, so much so that I think it would be an interesting challenge for an artist who has found their voice and found their style and found themselves, so to speak, to try to make a piece of art that is not imbued with their personality and with who they are. I think that would be a real challenge.
Yeah.
Like, try Banksy, get out there and do something that's not Banksy.
Right.
Like, if that were me, if somebody came to me and was like, do something that's not Dan Tamarkin, that would be a huge challenge.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, I really, I treat art and photography and dance and music and all of these things that we think of artistic pursuits, writing, painting, all of these things, they really are, they operate under the same properties of physics, I think. And I'm a big believer that when one allows things to occur organically, beautiful things emerge. And it's like gravity. It's a law. It's an immutable law of the world in which we live. And it's a very difficult thing, I think, to put one's finger on. And it is ethereal. And I don't know. I was not really such a great student. I quote people, but I don't know who said a thing. It might have it might have been Nietzsche who said that in the end, or Humboldt maybe, who said, in the end, the only experience we have is that of self. And I think that's very true. However, I think it's really not true in a way because of exactly what we're talking about, Tyson, about how these ripples in the pond cross one another and how our even is something as insignificant as a taxi driver's remark can stay with you and influence you and of become a part of your world and of your lexicon and how you live your life and how your philosophy and all of this kind of thing. And these kind of dichotomies that present themselves in life. Um, even the dichotomy of the notion of there being this community around Leica and photography, which is in ultimately a fairly solo pursuit.
Yep.
That we can somehow do it together, make it together, and share these experiences. And that's one of the things I think that makes community, no matter what community is, so wonderful. Because especially with photography, that it is in a lot of ways a very solitary pursuit. Let me misquote Ansel Adams. Somebody said, somebody said to Ansel Adams, how come there's never any people in your pictures? And he said, well, there's always two people. There's me, the photographer, and there's you, the viewer. So in a sense, I'm suggesting the fallacy in my own ideas about photography that it is a solo pursuit. It's automatically not a solo pursuit. It's like a tree falling in the woods. If you take the most brilliant picture ever and nobody sees it, how brilliant could that photograph be? Well, I would argue that it is.
Yep.
And it is. And so that tree falling in the woods, it's still a falling tree. And does it make a sound? Yes, of course it makes a sound. Whether or not anybody's around to hear it is the question that you're asking.
Yeah.
Or not, I don't mean you. I mean the question that the proverb or whatever the thing comes from, which I've always found is kind of silly. Um, uh, and so this is all to say that everything is connected. Nothing happens in a vacuum. I believe nothing happens in a vacuum. And that these tiniest of things, like a nice note from Kieran or Jim, or a night just reaching out and being like, "Hey, how you feeling?" Or "I'm thinking about you," or sending somebody a dirty meme or a funny meme or whatever it is. It's so super important, and there's no excuse these days for not having that connectivity because we've got our phone, we have this connectivity at our fingertips, and there's no excuse these days. And so I think that even though I do very often bemoan this technology that's become so much interwoven into the fabric of our lives, I like to unravel it as much as I'm able. But I think that we really do need to appreciate each stitch as best we're able because there's so many stitches and stuff moves so fast. And there's no way you can fully appreciate the entire tapestry by looking at one tiny ass little part of it. You just can't do it. And there's really not enough time in the day to keep up with everybody. And this world, now I'm just going to spout philosophical. This world that we live in that is so rapidly paced and so unappreciative of the quiet, introspective moment and drives us all forward with this frenetic energy. Ugh, I hate it. And let me tell you, I'm shot out of a cannon myself, so I could keep up. I'm not bemoaning is like, oh, I'm old and unimportant anymore, and I can't. No, I could keep up. I could keep up with the best of them, believe me. But there's just no way that anybody can ever keep up with everything all the time. And so it's important to just send a note and be like, hey, I'm thinking about you. And then what happens is somebody says, hey, did you see my post on Facebook? I'm having a party next weekend. I'm like, no, I didn't, because I'm never on Facebook. I hate it. And now I know about your party. Thank heavens I said, hey, buddy, how you doing? Because
Yeah,
now this, again, one little thing is full of a million possibilities.
100%.
It's full of everything in our lives is full of a million possibilities.
Getting the emails from listeners of the show,
Yeah.
I got one last week where he mentioned being at the ICP event for James, and he was able to meet James and Kieran. And he was like, thank you for your stories with them. That's how I found out about your podcast, is because they're at this event level thing and they're both preaching the quality of my show. And that's so humbling, because I'm just some dude in Canada who found his avenue. And now I'm sharing it with people like you. And, I have friends. I've created this friend group basically all over the world, that I can show up and be like, hey, I'm in town. And I have people to talk to and chat with and get to know better. And it's been such an incredible experience and such a worthwhile journey, that no matter what age you are or what you feel, I mean, I jumped into this when I was almost 49 when I did my first episode. And, and I'm almost 2 years in now, and I'm, it's starting to take off, but it takes hard work. Like you said, you have to be committed and put your time and do all of that. But it's also important that you have that time during the day where you send somebody a message and say, what's going on? How you doing? You doing okay? Because you can read what people's moods are, and it's always important to check in.
I agree. It's one of it. It really, it's so easy to do, and it means so much. It really does. And I think that it, it's scary to put yourself out there. And whether you're, 19, 29, 39, 49, 59, 79, whatever it is, I think even in the absolute giant sea that is social media, it's tough to put yourself out there, and not everyone has. I happen to have this thing in spades, for better or for worse. I have it in spades, where if you allow me, I will take up all the space in a room. Just because I'm boisterous and I like to laugh, I'm loud, I'm not shy
Yeah.
generally. Not everybody is like that. And and it can be scary to put your stuff out there. I remember when I was first writing poetry, I was like, nobody is ever going to see this, because I just felt so vulnerable. But one of the ways that we get the fortitude to know that we're on the right path or to keep going, I think, is when you get unbidden, you get feedback like you got from James and Karen, and or that I get from my clientele, or that when you're doing something right, you're doing something right, just absolutely out of nowhere, people like it, and it starts to get wheels. The great consciousness is actually has a very short memory, kind of like nature. It's a lot like nature. It just doesn't care about any of us individually. It really doesn't. And it can be scary to put yourself out there into the world and post what you think is a world-changing picture, and it gets 14 likes. You know what? It doesn't matter, because the 14 are 14 people that didn't have that in their lives before. And if it's 1400, it works the same way. It works the same way. It's like it's when it's this tree falling in the woods. It's the same thing. And you come back to, well, did it make a sound? You're damn straight it made a sound. You made that picture and 14 people saw it. That's 13 more than the world ever intended when that picture got snapped.
Yep.
And maybe it'll be like Vivian Meyer, or it'll be like a Duesenberg that somebody unearths in the bottom of a barn that was like Duesenberg number 1 or something like that. Or it's an archaeological dig from 1923 and they find Tutankhamun and your mind gets blown.
Yeah.
There's such a giant array of stuff that's going to be of digital stuff that's going to be left in the wakes of our lives that I think it becomes a little bit, especially as we grow older, I think it becomes a little bit more daunting, this idea of what will my legacy be? Or if you're like you or I, Tyson, where you find a second career or you find this second thing later in life that propels you, that both you propel and propels you forward. There are many people who have only one career, and there are many people who have just a single hobby or don't move in and out of different things throughout their lives, and everybody's different. Nonetheless, it can be very daunting, especially later in life, to make a change or to put oneself out there. And so, again, coming back to community, it's everything. It really is everything. Which is one of the reasons that when I do take photographs, I don't take photographs very often, but when I do, I crop them all. No, just kidding. I take pictures of people. Oh, that's a lot of what I really like to do, even though I don't consider myself a portrait photographer. Because there are always two people in every photograph, as Ansel Adams said. And it really is the sharing of this thing that is ourselves, whether it happens in dance, writing, photography, or whatever it is. It's an immense gift to the rest of the world. It really is. It's an immense gift. It's a little bit of how you see the world framed, and I think it's hard. It's hard sometimes to actually to appreciate it for what it is. But if you look at two photographers who are photographing the same subject on the same day, who make two very different photographs, it comes into a more stark contrast. And I see this from time. You might think to yourself, when does that ever happen? Well, I do a lot of workshops. I either attend or host a lot of workshops, and very often we're all shooting on the same subject or at the same time on the street or whatever. And it really is very interesting and very telling what people see and what they get, and being able to compare these things and how people see the world. Again, because ourselves are imbued into our art automatically, it's a gift that we give the world, whether it's a sentence, a look, an admonishment, anything. And I think that the more we slow down to appreciate the moment, the more rich we recognize that moment as being, and the less lacking that moment really is. But I'll go a step further than that. I'll get off at the depot and I'll say that there's nothing wrong with this moment. If you're not hungry and you're not backed into a corner or being faced with some kind of awful bodily harm, show me what's wrong with the moment. And so, and if there is something wrong, I will help you fix it. But until there is anything wrong with the moment, just be in the moment. And sometimes that means clicking the shutter. Sometimes it means not clicking the shutter. Sometimes it means speaking up. Sometimes it means not. I mean, it could mean all these different things. And so I know I'm speaking in these very broad terms, but I think that they're also very applicable in very minute ways. And for someone whose brain is constantly going like mine, appreciation of the moment is something of a miniature meditation. And it's one of the reasons that I can't have a camera with me all the time. I don't carry a camera with me all the time because I work with them 40 hours a week.
Same reason I don't have an off-road truck.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's like, enough art. Like I need to have this balance, and so I find myself more steeped in the world of photography than necessarily I want to be. So any of you who might have found me on Instagram, you're like, oh, how come he doesn't follow me? It's because I don't never on my own Instagram account. I only ever do things for the company because I'm not really much of an Instagrammer. But what's the new one? Blue Sky. I'm excited to check out Blue Sky. That looks interesting to me because I think X and Facebook are a wasteland.
I can't get into all. I've signed up for all of them, and
Yeah.
it's just too many. It's
I'm
like,
so slow. I'm so slow to do it. And it's funny. My wife loves TikTok, and I'm on TikTok a little bit. It really. I mean, talk about a wasteland. In fact, I'll venture to say TikTok is as close to poison as you can get on a screen. Um, Boy, is it entertaining. And I think Bosco, when he gets out of jail, might appear on TikTok because that seems like exactly the right kind of puerile environment for a person such as himself. Um, and I'm really not very savvy but I enjoy entertaining people and I enjoy talking about and I really do. I'm really lucky to be doing what I'm doing. Uh, and I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. There are plenty of days when I come home and I'm like, I don't want to ever see a camera. Put all the cameras away. I don't want to know. It's, job's a job, but
yeah,
I'm really lucky and that I get to meet people like you and like Jim and like Karen and the bigwigs at Leica and I get to travel to Wetzlar. I mean, I travel to Wetzlar because I like to travel to Wetzlar. It's not like Leica's flying me around the world. Um, but we have, I'm a Leica boutique. Our Tamarkin Camera in downtown Chicago is a Leica boutique now, and what that means is we basically have the fancy schmancy Leica showroom and display, but you still get me, you know.
the best part.
Thanks, man. I mean, you still get me very informal. I'm probably wearing jeans. I'm probably not wearing a suit. That's what you get. But you get all of me, and that's one of the things that allows me to do what I do with such joy because I said this recently in an interview and somebody admonished me for it, but nobody's getting rich selling Leica. I don't know if they're getting rich selling Leica, then they don't really care all that much about the photography of it. I can almost guarantee you that. But it's a thankless job in a lot of ways because um, I'm in retail. I mean, if I was, let me tell you that if it wasn't Leica, I could not do this job. If I didn't have the passion for what I was selling, I couldn't do this job.
Yeah.
I mean, I am way too outspoken. That's the way, like I call myself a loudmouth, but somebody said to me, you should just say you're outspoken. I'm way too outspoken to be in the corporate world. Absolutely not happening. I got the pink slip in 2009 to show you, to tell you about, to prove it. And so I remember when I took over the company from my dad. I've been in Leica my whole life, so I've always known about the M cameras and I've known about the lenses. I've known a lot of stuff. But I remember when I first it was in my apprenticeship, the screw mount cameras, the cameras that they made from 1925 to about 1958 or so. They introduced the M camera in 54, but they made screw mount cameras for a little while afterward. Anyway, there are, oh geez, I don't even know, 25 different models. And I remember worrying about saying to my dad in a very worried tone about being able to identify all of these cameras at the drop of a hat and really learning all of this stuff. And he was like, Danny, you're going to be fine. The more you handle it, the more you learn it. It's like jazz. The more you listen, the more you know. Which this other thing that seems very inaccessible at first, I think, to a lot of people. But the more you listen, the easier access it is. And he said, plus, you got Google. You just look it up on Google. And I would ask him a question and be like, hey, Dad, what kind of camera is this? He'd be like, what are you going to do when I'm gone? Figure it out. So he was in a lot of ways a very good teacher because I figured a lot of stuff out on my own. But I remember being very worried about being able to play in the Leica retail space without having 35 years behind me. And he said, Danny, you have 35 years behind you. You're just not quite up to speed current. You gotta learn this digital stuff. You gotta learn this stuff. And it turned out that within a few months, I couldn't believe I had ever even said that. I knew a 3A from a 3B, and I knew the differences between the standards, non-standard, and all that kind of stuff just by practicing. And I learned that there really isn't anything to be afraid of. And that's not, even for somebody as gregarious and outgoing as myself, I suffer daily from imposter syndrome
Yeah.
at varying levels. Varying levels. Sometimes it's debilitating, and sometimes I just shrug it right off. I don't think I know anybody who doesn't, especially if you built your own thing, which I kind of have, kind of haven't. Like I kind of have, kind of haven't, you know?
Yep.
So, but it's rough, man. I mean, it could be debilitating. And that's the thing. It's like, putting yourself out there, whether it is interfacing with a customer over the counter or Instagram or putting your own work in a gallery or up on Instagram or up on Facebook, when we make ourselves vulnerable, it's very counterintuitive, but the more vulnerable we make ourselves, the more fortitude we gain and the stronger we become, I believe. And it's counterintuitive and you wouldn't think about it. Because in, the animal kingdom, if you show a sign of weakness, you're going to be prey. You're going to have a cheetah, right? Smacking at you. So it's counterintuitive, and it's very difficult, especially in the world that we live in today. I think it's more fraught and it is more difficult for people, especially people who don't have my sort of personality, to put themselves out there in the world because it's scary. Because some troll online who would never say this to your face will write some awful thing and then we spiral.
Yeah.
Yeah, half the time I wake up and I'm like, oh God, I have no idea what am I going to post today? I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't really know. But you know what? I got news for you. And we're going to quote the great Lenny Bruce. And this is verbatim. Okay. Anybody who never did it, anybody who ever did it, never did it before. And he's talking about jumping out of an airplane. Anybody who ever did it, never did it before. It's scary.
Yep.
Especially you start your own podcast or you start your own thing. It's scary, man. It's scary. You put your own gallery show up. Maybe you even rent the gallery to put your own show up. Is anybody going to come? Is anybody going to like it? Are people only going to say congratulations? Which is a great thing to say because it's completely non-committal. You can say congratulations if the work is absolute crap, right?
Yeah.
So, or if you think no judges, I couldn't. It doesn't matter to me. In the world of theater, I stopped feeling like I needed to compliment people because the more when you go to a certain amount of shows, or you go, whether they're gallery exhibits or music shows or plays, which is what it was for me. When you go to a certain amount of shows, you build up a lot of kind of unenjoyment over time.
Yeah.
You log in a lot of unenjoyable hours. And so I learned just to say congratulations. So don't be insulted if I say congratulations to you at your show. But I say that to everybody.
I will. I'll be fully insulted.
Please don't be. I will be. You will be? Okay, good.
I know what you mean when you say the congratulations.
Exactly what's wrong with each one of your photographs?
Perfect.
Yeah. That's actually it's one of my superpowers, is I can enumerate what's wrong with just about anything. And I also am pretty good at telling people what kind of animal they look like. But and I don't remember what I was rambling about, but boy, is it important to enjoy the moment, be in the moment, live the moment. That's a quote from some movie. I don't know what it is. Everything in life can be reduced, in my estimation, to a quotation from The Godfather, Caddyshack, 2001: A Space Odyssey. I mean, the whole, you could take your pick. I'm a big fan of reducing life's experiences to movie quotes.
I do the same thing.
You do? Oh, I'm
but
glad
usually
to know
anything
I'm
Will Ferrell. So it's usually Ricky Bobby. It's always something, or Fast and the Furious quotes. Because
Fast and the Furious I haven't seen yet, but the Ricky Bobby stuff is really funny. In fact, I might be ready for a rewatch on that. One of the things, so I went out to LA. I have no idea, Tyson, if you edit this, what you do for this podcast, if you edit it or anything,
I
but I'm
guess
just
you'll
going
find
to,
out, won't you?
I guess we'll find out, won't we? Yeah. That's one of my favorite responses actually of all time for anything. Well, let's find out. Um, or I guess we're going to see. I became friendly just kind of through the Leica community out of freaking nowhere. I become friendly with Charlize Lynn, Nocti Girl on Instagram, um, and Kevin Fickling, who's Decrypto. Anyway, I become friendly with Charlize, and she was making some video, and I helped her out. I gave her pictures, and we started to collaborate. We just realized we have the same sense of humor. We just really like each other, and so we wanted to make more videos together. And I was like, "Well, I got to get out of Chicago. Let me come out to LA." So I went out to LA, and she was like, "What kind of videos?" I said, "Do you want me to bring any lenses? Do you want me to bring any fun Leica stuff, and we can make some videos?" And she's like, no, no, I don't, I don't really know. We'll do something. Like, we'll go to the different camera shops and we'll make some videos. It'll be fun. I was like, great. She's like, what kind of videos do you want to make? And I said, well, I've got this Elvis wig. And so we started to make these videos, and I just having a terrific time. And the more I did it, the more I realized that pretty much everything that we experience in life can be kind of narrowed down to shared experiences. And the reason I'm telling the story about Charlize and about going out to visit and making these videos, we wound up making only these super wacky videos with Bosco, and we just had a delightful time. Um, but it occurred to me that it's only in the collaboration and in the shared experience that we find commonality. And so whether that's around the Leica M or activities that we share together, like Charlize and I making these videos, or an example that I can give you from my 20s, I am still very connected to a couple of guys that I used to go mountaineering with. And we're not really involved in each other's lives very much, but every now and then but we still feel very connected to one another. And these shared experiences, I think, are the things that catapult friendships, catapult moments into friendships, and that catapult meetings or shared experiences into these friendships. I had no idea how close Jim Rice and I would become when we first met. I absolutely no idea. I just knew I liked the guy. But sharing experiences, sharing moments, and I realized I was like, wow, every story that I hear, every little bit that I learn about this person, it's a gift that they're giving me. For example, Jim's story, your own story, and everybody has them, but these moments in life that are pivotal, that are fraught, that are perilous, that are dangerous, that are moving, to share those, and to share, even to say, well, I think these are gifts, because ultimately this experience that we have can only be that of self. Ultimately, I really do. I'm kind of have that stuck in my craw philosophically, and that we influence one another, and that we have a responsibility for one another's happiness, which is a whole other thing. They're so impactful, and they are the seeds that grow. And it sounds cliche and it sounds silly, but they are the seeds that grow. And there are some seeds that grow without watering. There's some plants that just grow.
Yeah.
They do need sun and they do need water, but like you don't have to really tend to them. And then there are some that are like an orchid where you're like, you can't keep this fucking thing alive. Like, man, what do I need to do? I've done everything. I've read everything. I bought the fertilizers. I set my watch to this flower for what and then when it dies, you say, wow, was that a beautiful flower? And then maybe you get another orchid. Maybe. But then you think to yourself, you're like, boy, this was a huge pain in the ass. But boy, was it beautiful. I think friendships are very much, I think people in our lives, not just friendships, but people in our lives, And so I think that it's an extension of the idea that are in the end our only experience is that of self, yet it is so heavily influential to others and influenced by others that it almost doesn't hold up under scrutiny, this notion that the experience of life is only that of self. It does for me still hold up, but I can understand how folks would look at it and be like, yeah, that doesn't hold up. That's bullshit. I'm like, okay, whatever. I can dig it. No judgies, as the kids say. Um, but more problematic for me, and actually, I guess this does kind of touch on photography as healing your soul.
Hey, that was a nice segue.
Thanks, man. Because I'm trying to, because I'm as broken as the next person, but I try to live my life as whole as I can and bring the parts of me that are whole and try to not bring any of those torn or broken parts to the moment.
That's a big
If I'm
thing.
able, sometimes I'm not.
Yeah.
And as I alluded to earlier, one of my superpowers happens to be enumerating the exact problems with the moment or a person's behavior, for example. I'm really good at telling people off, which is something I very rarely do because I don't care what other people think.
Yeah.
So it's odd. It's like I don't really use the superpower that I have, but if I do, I'm going to use it for good, not for evil. Um, uh, and you will see if that happens, but you can say it. Isn't it pretty to think so? Um, I think that we are, I grapple with this, Tyson. I do. I grapple with this, but we are responsible for one another's happiness. Not fully, but to the point that we're reciprocated, perhaps, to the point that we're not inconvenienced, perhaps, to the point where we're made equally happy, perhaps. I don't know how to parse it out, but I can only tell you that the moments where I think to myself, I am not responsible for that person's happiness, it just doesn't ring as true in my bell, in my noggin, as when I say to myself, I'm responsible for that person's happiness. And I'm talking about in the moment. I'm not talking about being I don't feel responsible for everybody's happiness in the world. I'm thinking about moments. I'm also thinking about relationships. I had a falling out with a friend a few months ago over the summer. We didn't fight. We each said a thing, in my mind, my bell stopped ringing, and I was like, I, I don't feel any differently about this person. Am I sad? Yeah, I am kind of sad, but in my tribe, in my community, in my concentric circles of pebbles thrown into a pond, we don't talk to each other like this. This is not how this is we don't friends don't do that. And if they do, they say, "Wow, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I hurt your feelings like that. I'll never do it again. I want to understand better what I did or whatever it is." But it was shocking to me. I'm a sentimental person. Shocking to me the ease with which I allowed that plant to die, that orchid to die. I I was. And it made me think that I'm cold or that I've somehow changed in some negative way. Um, some plants just need a lot of water. Some just do their own thing, like a succulent, you kind of can't kill them. I'm friends with a guy I've been friends with for oh my God, 41 years now, since I was 15 years old, and we're still friendly. And you know what? I could set fire to that bush and we would still be friends.
Yeah.
We're that close. We love each other. And Jim and I are kind of the same way. We know each other so well. That you talk about beauty. That's really beautiful stuff,
Yep.
and it's immutable. It's like nature. It's just absolutely immutable. And I think that it's really it's really important. And this is something that I do grapple with on on a larger level and a smaller level, is this notion of of how much of self is is the fullness of my experience, but more to the point, how responsible are we for one another's happiness in this world? Um, and I grapple with that. And I mean, I really fully grapple with that. But you know, what's really nice is more than nice is a crummy word. You know what makes the whole question completely moot is when you see your friend. When you walk in, when your friend walks into the room, or somebody you haven't seen in a long time, or your brother or your sister or whomever it is walks into the room and you light up, you light up. That's beauty.
That's the moment.
That's the moment. That's if every moment we're like that one, nobody would ever have any complaints. And we wouldn't have all this assholery in the world today. It would be a completely different kind of thing.
100%.
So
I agree.
I try. I try. And for anybody who has an experience of Dan Tamarkin that's different from that, just know that you caught me in a bad moment. And if you didn't, then it was absolutely fully my intention. Which is, I don't know, man. It's not really true.
I got two last ththings here for you, Dan.
Yeah.
One, what are the chances when I get my project going that we can put it in your gallery and I come 100%. Out to Chicago?
100%.
Two,
it's all timing. It's all timing. So here's the balance that we have to strike. Okay. In Chicago, nobody goes outside unless it's like spring or summer, right?
Yep.
Everybody hibernates in the winter. However, people are always in the winter looking for something to do that's not in their homes. And so, hard to say whether or not a February show would be a better date than an April show, but buddy, 100%. I'd love
Perfect.
to have you work in the gallery. And I think it's a really interesting project. I can't remember how much of that part of the conversation got recorded, if any, but I'm super excited for it. And I'm going to watch it no matter what involvement I can have in it.
And then two, how does one become an ambassador for Tamarkin Camera to spread the word of Dan Tamarkin around the world?
Anybody, I hereby deputize you, Tyson. You are absolutely an ambassador. It's funny. I ask Leica very difficult questions. In fact, every time the phone rings, it says Tamarkin, they're like, oh, good God, what does he want now? Because I'm constantly shaking that tree to see what kind of fruit's going to fall out. And one time I shook the tree and I was like, okay, look, I'm hearing all this. I hear people, this Leica ambassador thing. What does that, I need a definition. And because I was like, I would like to be bestowed the title. Can I be knighted? I mean, can I get an amen?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. So what they say is if you work for in any of the Leica stores, you're like an ambassador. If you walk out of the house with your camera because you're excited to be having that camera, like your new Q Type 116, and somebody goes up to you and says, what are you taking a picture of? Even if you don't say it's a Leica, ding, you're a Leica ambassador. So that's literally how it works. And brand awareness comes from big things and little things alike. It's not just a red dot. It's a smile. It's taking that younger photographer under your wing and showing them how to make the waterfall look like clouds, or reminding them to take their lens cap off before they hit the shutter. It runs the gamut, it runs the gamut. But yeah, I'm thrilled to be able to talk with you a little bit, man. In fact, I would do this whether you're recording or not. So, congratulations on your newfound ambassadorship.
Yeah, this is great.
I'm gonna email. I can't remember if we have one another's phone numbers, but I'm gonna message you on Instagrizzle my telephone number so that we can stay in more direct contact if we want. And I'll look forward to being on a Zoom anytime. I'm just overjoyed to meet you, Tyson. And congratulations on your ambassadorship and on this terrific podcast. I'm just overjoyed to be a part of it. And I'm on the edge of my seat to see what's next for you.
I appreciate that. That means so much coming from someone that I look up to who is putting themselves out there and just not caring. And I'm learning to not care. I'm learning to people can say whatever they want. I'm going to continue to do what I do. And I'm going to continue to build this community of people that want to share their story and their journey. So I appreciate you, Dan. And please send me your number and I'll add you into my must stay in contact with list. And once I get a little bit more depth in this project, I'll touch base with you and we can come up with a plan of attack.
Well, that sounds great, buddy. I'm looking forward to it. You keep doing what you do because it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yes.
Enjoy the remainder of your day. I will speak with you anon.
Have a good one, my friend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, buddy. You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Life of PHYS podcast. I hope today's conversation brought you insight, inspiration, or just a fresh perspective on the creative journey. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to follow, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps us grow and reach more listeners like you. For updates, behind-the-scene content, and more, please follow us on all social medias at LIFE_OF_PHYS. And don't forget to check out the show notes for links and resources from today's episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep living the life of creativity.